The Infamous series are 3 games where you play as this random dude who all of a sudden becomes a superhero. In the first 2 games you play as Cole McGrath, whose power is electrical energy, and in the third game you play as Delson Rowe, a power sponge wielding the powers of smoke, neon, video, and concrete. Today I'll talk about this underrated franchise and say what I like and dislike about it. So this today is my opinion on the Infamous series. Of course, spoilers ahead. Let's start off by saying that I absolutely love this franchise. It's one of my favorite franchises of all time and it's very underrated. The community is not small, but it's not one of those games that you automatically think about when thinking of other story games or stuff like that. Most people think of games like Red Dead Redemption 2, The Last of Us, The Witcher 3, God of War, and I absolutely think that the Infamous series should be in the same category for me. Now, I am a bit biased because Infamous is one of the first games I ever played, but I still think that it should be held in the same regard as the others. Infamous One's protagonist, like mentioned before, is Cole McCrath, a courier in Empire City, who one day had a very special package to deliver. But before he could do that, he got a phone call. The person in the phone call was encouraging him to open the package. Cole is hesitant at first, but ultimately opens it. From then, his life changed forever. That package caused a huge explosion that destroyed an entire district of Empire City and killed thousands of people. Except for Cole, who was right in the middle and somehow survived. When he woke up, he found out that he has some sort of gift, that being that he could control electricity. As the weeks went on, Cole would learn to control his powers a bit better as he had to protect himself and his best friend Zeke, as people in the city were aware that the explosion was set off by Cole, and a lot of people now hated him for it, including his girlfriend Trish, who lost her sister to the explosion. Empire City has also been put into quarantine as a strange plague started to infect many people in the city, making them very sick. Also, gangs were running the place, and the entire city was just a mess since Cole decided to open that package that gave him all his powers. Now, just that beginning of the story is amazing for me. It sets this dark tone for the game very well, and the situation that you as Cole are currently in, and it just works at making someone invested into the story, or at least it did for me. Now, before I continue into the story, let me talk about the gameplay a bit, and also about the karma system. Now, the gameplay, of course, playing it now, it does feel a bit outdated, but you gotta remember that this game came out in 2009, so it's very old, and so it's normal that it does feel outdated. But at the time, it was actually pretty good, from what I remember at least. I mean, the game felt nice, and also the powers that you are given to travel faster in the city are very helpful, so I like it. The gameplay was pretty good back then, but yeah, now it's outdated. Now for the karma system, and this is something that I love as well. It's very unique and it gives the players multiple choices that changes the outcome of some of the missions that you do and even the story as a whole, which I'm a sucker for. I like that in this game they give you the choice to either be a hero that the city loves or a villain that the city absolutely hates. The only comparable other systems that I can find other than the Karma system are probably the Mass Effect Paragon Renegade system or the Red Dead Redemption Honor system. If you guys know of another one, please let me know, but those are the only ones that I can think of now. And also, depending on the choices that you make, people react to you differently in the city, which is something that can be said for a newer game like, for example, Cyberpunk. But anyway, this for a 2009 game is pretty impressive. But anyway, let's continue to the story. So as you go on, you meet other people like Cole, that being conduits. You meet Sasha, who is the leader of the Reaper faction, and you meet Alden Tate, who is the leader of the Dustman faction. I find both of these antagonists to be very interesting, especially Sasha, and I wish that we could have seen a bit more from them as well. Like I said before, especially Sasha, because she was a very interesting character. We get a couple of visions from her, but we don't see her as often as Alden, and I wish we could have seen a bit more from her as well. I like both of these characters, but I also understand why we didn't see a lot from them, because they're not the main antagonists. The main antagonist is Kessler. He is later revealed to be the one that called Cole about opening the package. He is a conduit, and he was there at the very beginning of the story. He knows everything that happened up until this point. He is also the leader of the First Sons faction. He remains a mysterious character for most of the game, but I'll talk about him a bit more later on. Now, throughout the game, Cole has been getting his missions from a woman named Moya, who works for the government. Cole's objective, from what Moya gives him, is to help her find her husband, John White. But it turns out that when you find him, he reveals that he's not married, and he doesn't know a Moya, which is a nice little twist. I like it. And Cole, because of that, doesn't trust Moya anymore. She lied to him basically the whole time. You have also been trying to find another race sphere the entire game, which is another of what that package from the beginning of the game was. A race sphere is able to activate someone's conduit gene, taking the energy from the people who aren't conduits into the person that is a conduit, so that his or her powers activate. Eventually, you find one at the top of Alden's tower where you, Alden, and Kessler all face off for it. Zeke is also there to help Cole out. Has the race sphere in his hands, and instead of giving it to Cole, he activates the race sphere in hopes of also turning into a conduit. But that really doesn't work in his favor, and so Kessler proposes to help Zeke if he gives him the race sphere, which Zeke does, betraying his best friend Cole. This betrayal was not something that I expected at all, but I loved it. It doesn't come out of nowhere. Throughout the game, you actually see Zeke being pretty jealous of Cole's powers, so he tried to make himself into a conduit, to be the hero, and have people chant his name, even betraying his best friend in the process. Now, throughout the game, many other big moments happen. Kessler kills Trish, Cole's girlfriend. Cole is either seen as a hero or a villain by the people of Empire City, depending on your choices. You eventually defeat the other conduits, that being Sasha and Alden. John White dies when destroying or activating the race sphere, and all of those are just really good, and they make you a lot more invested in the story. Like for me, every time a mission was done, I just felt like continuing and playing the next one. The game only gets better as you continue to play. Now, of course, there are annoying missions, looking at you, Poison Balloon mission, but overall, most missions are very fun. Now, let's talk about the masterpiece of the ending. So, in the ending, you meet up with Kessler at the same place that Cole opened the package at the beginning of the game. You both have a little chat before fighting, and eventually, Cole defeats Kessler. But just before Kessler dies, he lunges at Cole and gives him visions. Through these visions, it's explained that Kessler used to be just like Cole, except for the fact that Kessler was living a happy life, married to Trish, with Zeke as his best man. But that was before something strange happened. A beast from unknown origins was destroying the entire world, and the only man who could stop it was Kessler. But instead of doing that, Kessler ran away with his family. But eventually, the beast killed his family too. So he made a choice to return to the past with his powers and train his past self to be ready to face off against this beast, even if that meant killing the people that he cared for. The reason he does that is because he doesn't want Cole to make the same mistakes as he did in the past. It's revealed to us that Cole and Kessler are the same person. This twist is amazing. I can't even begin to explain how much I love it. It's so well written, I just don't have any words for it. Usually I hate it when shows or movies do this time travel bullshit, but here the way that Sucker Punch did it, it's a masterpiece, no doubt. You have been literally fighting yourself for the entire game. He's been trying to prepare you for a bigger threat coming to the world. It's amazing. You see that he regrets his doing what he did, running away with his family instead of fighting the beast and saving the world. Sucker Punch wrote this masterpiece of the ending. I love it so much. Now, like I said, I may be a bit biased because this is one of the first games that I ever played. But back then, I didn't understand shit of what I was playing. I was, what, like fucking 7 years old or something. But now that I understand everything, it's amazing. But anyway, we've ended the first game, so I think that it's time to move on to the second game and talk about that one. Let's talk about Infamous 2. Infamous 2 starts off with Cole, Zeke, because yeah, Zeke eventually came back because he realized he fucked up, so he started to help Cole again, and a new character, Lucy Quo, who is an agent from the NSA, the same organization that John White used to work in. She contacted Cole to work together into the first and the second game. Cole at the beginning of the second game is very strong. He practically mastered all of his abilities, but he still wasn't ready to face the beast, and that's why Agent Quo was with him to help him become more powerful. But just then, an explosion on the other side of the city happens, and our main characters hear it. They fear that the beast has come, and their fears are confirmed. Cole has no other choice to fight the beast, even with him not being fully ready. He has to, otherwise the city gets destroyed. They both fight for a while, with Cole eventually crippling the beast, but not killing it. They try to get away, but the beast catches Cole, and Cole hits it with everything he's got. But at the same time, the beast is draining Cole's powers, so they both fall to the ground. Our main characters get away from Empire City by boat, because the beast eventually puts itself back together and destroys the entire city. Cole's most powers being drained, Zeke builds a weapon for him to be able to concentrate his powers on that weapon. He called it the Amp. They decide to go south to the city of New Marais, but New Marais was being occupied by a local militia, ran by anti-conduit leader Joseph Bertrand III. The beast continues to head south, destroying each city. Cole and his crew have a couple of weeks before the beast eventually comes to New Marais, so their goal is to get Cole strong again. They do that with the help of Dr. Sebastian Wolf. He built a device called the RFI to kill the beast, but Cole isn't strong enough to activate it, so that's why Dr. Sebastian Wolf and Agent Lucy Quo are there to help him get more powerful with these things called blast cores. The second game also sets up the new city very well and what's happening there. It's also explained that the plague from Empire City is now all over the world, and billions of people are getting sick from it, but that becomes more important later on. Also, the RFI is apparently able to cure the plague as well. Shit hits the fan big time, with Dr. Wolf getting killed by the militia and Quo being captured as well. When looking for Quo, Cole meets another conduit named Nyx, who plays more on Cole's evil and rebellious side. So you eventually find Quo and find out that she's been turned into a conduit as well. And she's not the only one. In this militia base, there are hundreds of super soldiers with the power of ice. They are called the Icemen and become another faction in the game. Eventually, the crew of Quo, Nyx, Quo, and Zeke get informed of a blast core inside a militia fort. So with the help of the rebel faction, whose leader is Roscoe LaRoche, you assault the fort, and eventually get the blast core. By the way, little side note, this mission is probably the best in the game. I fucking loved it. But anyway, after Cole absorbs the blast core, he sees Bertrand getting away on his helicopter, so he shoots it down and goes to the crash. But Bertrand is nowhere to be found. But just then, a huge monster starts attacking the city. Cole defeats it and sees that the huge monster is Bertrand. He flees to another part of the city where Cole eventually follows him, but before he could do that, he has to power up that side of the city. Quick side note before moving on to the story. The gameplay is of course better than the first game. The new powers that you have are also very interesting and fun to use. Like the first game, of course now it's a bit outdated, but it's still a blast to play. So let's continue to the story. So Cole is getting more powerful each day, and he's been getting closer to defeating Bertrand and freeing the city from the militia with the help of the rebels and his friends. Eventually, you find out from Nyx that Bertrand has been making these monsters for the militia to fight off to keep them in business. And depending on your choices, you either expose Bertrand to the public with Quo, or you help Nyx make her own monsters to fight with you. But let's not forget that the beast is getting close to New Marais, so Zeke gets a fucking nuclear missile to shoot at it at the beast as a desperate attempt to put it down for good. Him and Cole do it, and when the beast gets close, they blast the shit out of it. But it's still not enough. The beast is in New Marais, but it's not showing itself, because the missile hurt it pretty bad. Bertrand is pretty pissed off at Cole, so he tries to kill him, but fails. Cole eventually tracks him down and kills him for good, but not before finding out that Bertrand was a very intelligent businessman. He was responsible for making the monsters and the Icemen for his own benefit, selling them to various very powerful people in the world, either for protection or war. This dude is insanely smart, but now that doesn't matter, because Cole killed him. Bertrand is an amazing character. He's so well written. He hates conduits, but he is one himself. He wanted to become like a god, but instead became a disgusting monster and blames all conduits for it. The conversation that he has with Cole at the rooftop before his boss fight, 10 out of 10 dialogue, easy. Also, just a little before you kill Bertrand, you have a mission to go disturb some Iceman operations. Not really important. What is important is that someone contacts you during this, and that person is John White, who we thought died back in Infamous 1 after the race fear told him apart. But he explains that he had to put himself back together, atom to atom. John became a conduit, a very powerful one, and he talks to Cole a little bit before explaining his intentions. He gives Cole a small power for him to see the people affected by the plague. It also gives them the ability to see who has the conduit gene or not. So they go to a warehouse that has been turned into some kind of hospital, and they see the many people infected by the plague. But they see a woman with the conduit gene inside her. John explains that she can be helped, as active conduits are immune to the plague. He shows Cole how to help her, and Cole recognizes John's powers. It's the Beast. John White is the Beast. He is a walking race sphere, activating conduits' powers, but in turn sacrificing millions of other people who aren't conduits. What another fucking banger of a twist from Sucker Punch. They have so many plot twists and none of them are bad. So Cole has a decision to make now. He saw that John's plan works to cure the plague. So does he choose the RFI who might not even work, or does he choose John? He explains the situation to the crew, and Zeke and Nick still want to use the RFI and kill the beast. And Quo, for the moment, agrees. So Cole does it. But the RFI is not fully charged, so he can't activate it yet. And also, when he almost activated it, they were dying. Cole, Nix, and Quo, the conduits, were dying. The RFI kills all conduits, not just the beast like it was originally supposed to. Another great twist. When will these guys stop? Nick still wants to kill the beast, but Quo wants to go with John's plan. The roles completely reversed in the ending. Nix was the bad one and Ko was the good one, but in the end, the roles switched completely, and I fucking love it. So Cole makes a decision, and with the karma system, it depends on how you play the game. If you choose the good ending, you kill the beast while sacrificing yourself and all conduits so that humanity can live on. While the bad ending, you join the beast, and you have to kill Nix and Zeke, which is very sad. So you also destroy the RFI. John mentions that he can't do this anymore, and that he's tired of killing, and he gives his powers to Cole, turning him into the beast. And just like in the first game, these endings are a fucking masterpiece. With the good ending, you accomplish what your past self, Kessler, couldn't do. You save humanity. But in the bad ending, you become the very thing that you swore to destroy. It's just amazing. Infamous 2 will always hold a very special place in my heart. I must have played it like 50 times or more, without exaggerating. It's easily one of my favorite games of all time. So with those two games out of the way, let's move on to the latest game in the franchise, Infamous Second Son. Now this will be a bit shorter because I don't want the video to be too long, and this game is my least favorite in the franchise. Not that it's bad, but the first two games just obliterate this one in terms of everything but gameplay. Second Son takes place 7 years after Infamous 2. You play as Delsin Rowe, a rebellious young man who lives in a Native American community. One day, a truck passes by the small community, and three prisoners escape the truck. Reggie Rowe, Delsin's brother, who is a police officer, chases them down, but one of the inmates stays behind. Delsin tries to help him, but Reggie comes back, and the inmate gets scared. The inmate is a conduit, or what the world now calls them, bioterrorist. He aims his hands at Reggie to shoot smoke out of his hand, but Delsin touches his hand and absorbs the power from him. The three get a bit separated, but eventually Delsin and the prisoner fight. Then, an organization who specializes in chasing conduits down comes to deal with the situation, the DUP, the Department of Unified Protection. They capture the convict, whose name is Henry Hank Daughtry. The leader of the DUP, Brooke Augustine, was there to handle the situation personally, but she feels like Delsin is not telling her the whole story of what happened. Depending on the choice you make, you can either tell her that you became a conduit to protect the community and not have Augustine interrogate them all, to which she'll not believe you and impale you with concrete, or tell her to fuck off, to which she'll respond with impaling you with concrete anyway. You wake up from your injuries and find out that the whole tribe was impaled with concrete, but Delsin, being a conduit, healed. You and Reggie decide to go into the city to get concrete powers to heal the tribe, but you find out that it's not as easy as it seems. Delsin needs Augustine's powers, but he can't just take them from a single DUP agent. He has to have the main conduit to absorb the power. So like before, let's have a little moment to talk about the gameplay and other side elements. The gameplay of Second Son is amazing, and I would say it still holds up to this day, which is surprising because the game came out in 2014 and the graphics are still amazing. I also like the fact that now the cutscenes have a graffiti style to it, seeing as that's more Delson style. It's not like a comic book anymore, if that makes sense. Not that I didn't like the comic book aspect to the other games, I loved it, but here I like that they made those scenes fit more of Delson style. So back to the story. As the game goes on, you continue to upgrade your abilities and such, and continue to disturb DUP operations, and then you eventually run into another of the escaped conduits, Abigail Fetchwalker. You get neon powers from her, and you can either redeem her, which is the good karma option, or corrupt her, which is the bad karma option. Depending on your choice, you have different missions, but in both karmas, you have a romantic relationship with Fetch. The story continues, you go on some fun missions and some boring ones, but as you continue, you encounter the last escaped conduit, Eugene Sims. You get video powers from him, just like with Fetch, you can either redeem or corrupt him. Also, I just want to say that the Eugene boss battle was so good, I loved it. It was so nerdy, but also pretty cool. The backstories of both these characters are very interesting, and I think that the devs did a pretty good job on that. Eventually, Hank, the convict from the beginning of the game, contacts you saying that he can help you get a core relay and also save Eugene and Fetch, who have been captured by Augustine. But it turns out that it's a trap by her to lure you and capture you. Reggie comes in to save you, but then Augustine kills him. Delson destroys the entire platform they were in, and then goes after Hank for betraying him. When you find him, he reveals that Augustine blackmailed him with his daughter, and that's why he betrayed Delson. After hearing this, you have two choices: either spare Hank and let him be with his daughter, or kill him for what he did to Reggie. I don't think I need to explain the karma on this one. You then track down Augustine with Fetch and Eugene, who come help as well. You take her powers, and depending on your choice, you either kill her or expose what she did to the public. Which is basically kinda like what Bertrand did in Infamous 2. Augustine applied the same strategy to keep the DUP in business, basically telling the public to be afraid of conduits, and intentionally freeing some to keep the DUP in control. I'm not saying that it's bad, but it just felt a bit reused because it's basically the same strategy that Bertrand applied with the militia in Infamous 2. But I still liked it. It's fine. It's a good game and a good ending. In the evil ending, you also go back to your tribe, but they refuse your help because of the way you went about doing it. So Delson kills the tribe and goes to Kern K, the prison where all the conduits are being kept, and frees them, but not before taking their power as well. While in the good ending, you help your tribe heal and you free the conduits at Kern K so that, well, they could be free. I prefer the bad ending to this game just because the canon ending to the Cole story was the good ending, so I feel like it's only fair to give the players who play as Evil Delson a canon ending as well. Now, like I said before, I like this game, but it just wasn't as good as the other two games in my opinion. Story-wise, I find Cole to be a more interesting protagonist than Delson. Delson is kind of like that cliche character that always makes jokes all the time, but he's still a good character, so yeah, the game was good, but the other two were better. That's just me. Well, we're finally at the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. With this video I tried something a little different, with that being covering the whole franchise at once instead of covering only one game. Let me know if that was a good choice on my part or if you prefer separate videos for each game. Like I said, Infamous holds a very special place in my heart, and if I had to give it a rating, I would give it a 10 out of 10. For me, it has everything. I love it. But anyway, remember that at the end of the day, this is just my opinion, and it's totally fine if you have another. Feel free to comment your own opinion down below in the comments, and also tell me on how I can improve on some things. So yeah, that's it. Bye now.